Welcome everyone. I hope you all are doing great. Today we are going to talk about route leaking in SD-WAN environment. Before going for the explanation, I would like to tell you about the topology. Currently, I have one data center site and two spoke sites. Data center is actually site 1, while I have two spoke sites. Site 2 is actually spoke 2 and site 3 is actually spoke 3. On every site, I have configured their own service VPN according to their site. For example, in this case, data center is site 1, I have configured a service VPN of 1. Okay, and this is site 2, which is spoke 2, I have configured a service VPN 2. And on site 3, this is spoke 3, I have configured a service VPN 3 over there. It is very important to understand that, for example, if I have configured the service VPN 1 over here, so it means that my corresponding all of my servers are reside in this service VPN 1. Okay. So if I am not configuring this service VPN 1 on any of my spoke site, I won't able to see the routes, or I would say the servers on my spoke sites. I won't able to see them. Why? Because I have not configured a service VPN 1 on this spokes. Right? This is just like an MPLS layer 3 VPNs. For example, if the VRF is configured on any of the provider router, you would able to see that VRF routes on that router. If you haven't configured the VRF on that router, you wouldn't able to see the routes of that MPLS layer 3 VPNs on that provider router. Same goes case with these service VPNs as well. If you are not going to configure the service VPN, you won't able to see the routes of that service VPN on any of the site. Now, the important thing to understand is that the service VPN 2 users and service VPN 3 users, for example, or site 2 or site 3 users, they do want to talk to the servers. Okay. And in the same way, service VPN 3 users, which is site 3 users, also wanted to talk to data center servers. How we are going to achieve this thing? Okay. So before going to understand this thing, that how we are going to achieve this thing, the first thing is that we need to understand is that all of the route advertisement are actually handled by the vSmart. So vSmart is the controller which is talking to all of the sites, which is site 1, site 2, and site 3. So all of the sites are advertising their routes to the vSmart. So what site 3 will do, it will advertise their users subnet route to this vSmart, and same case goes with site 2 as well. So the users that are going to connect on site 2, those routes is actually going to be advertised to the vSmart. Okay, and in the perspective of data center, so the servers that are connected on site 1 is part of service VPN 1. So they will advertise. Data center is going to advertise the route to the vSmart as well. In the case of route leaking, what we will do, we will take all of the routes that are coming from the spokes and we will export them into the service VPN 1, which is actually a data center routes or a data center service VPN. So all of the spokes route are actually shown into the data center VPN. Okay, this is the first thing. And what second thing will we do? Obviously, we had to talk to the servers. It will take all of the routes from the data center service VPN and it will export it to the service VPN of spoke sites. Okay. This way, what it will happen is like the service VPN 2 can able to communicate to the data center servers. Right now, I'm not talking about that how it is going to establish a tunnel to each other. By default, it's a mesh topology. So every site is going to establish a tunnel to each other in a mesh, which is actually happening in the perspective of mesh topology. The only thing is we are doing right now is playing with the routes. Okay, we are exporting them one of the service VPNs to another service VPNs. What is the benefit of doing this thing? The benefit, it could be like in any of like deployment model, every VPN, every site has its own service VPN, right? So what it happens, like this spokes VPN route will not be available or depictable over here. So that could be a benefit of that the spokes are not going to talk to each other. Despite of the fact they have established a tunnel to each other, but they will not going to talk to each other because they do not have a service VPN configured correspondingly to each of the sites, right? This could be one of the benefits. or it could be any up to your requirement. But the main thing right now to understand is that every site is own service VPN. They do establish a tunnel to each other, but still they are not going to talk to each other because every site has its own service VPN. And how we can talk to the data center, we will do, we will take the service VPNs of the spoke site and will export the service VPN routes of spoke sites to the data center service VPN, which is one. And correspondingly, we take the routes of the service VPN one, which is of data center side, and we will export it to the spokes service VPN. That's how we will configure. Let's start. This is my site one. First thing we had to see that okay, that my tunnel are established with my spoke sites, because this is site one and I will treat it as my data center site. My spoke sites are spoke site 2 and spoke site 3. So let me see that my tunnel is established with these two spoke sites or not. Show BFD sessions. Okay, as you can see, my tunnel has successfully established is with site 2 and site 3. This is actually my site ID. Okay, same case goes with I'll check with spoke site 2, that they did establish a tunnel with site 1, which is data center, and my spoke site as well. Show BFD sessions. As you can see, I can see that it has successfully established a tunnel with site ID 1 and the site ID 3. Let me show you to you over here. Show run system. This is configured site ID 2, okay, and this is configured site ID 3, which is 10.0 system IP is 10.03.1, okay. And let me show it over here on site 3. I can able the tunnel is successfully established with site 2 and site 1 as well. Show BFD, sorry, so BFD sessions. Okay, the tunnel is established successfully with site ID 1 and site ID 2. Site 1 is my data center site and 2 is actually my spoke site. We are seeing multiple actually tunnels with the remote site. That's because I have multiple ISPs on both sides. So currently that's not my discussion, is that how many ISPs, how many tunnels are established. The point right now that we had to discuss is that on each of my site, I have my own service VPN. And despite of the fact that tunnels have been established with these sites, I'm not learning the route or service VPN routes of my remote sites or my data center. Okay, let me show it to you. Currently over there, I have configured on site 3. I have service VPN of 3. I can show it too by show running VPN 3. Okay, this is the interface actually I have configured in VPN 3. As we all know, apart from VPN 0 and VPN 512, all apart from these two numbers, any number that we are going to configure, it will become actually work as an service VPN. Okay, so in VPN 3, I have configured interface 3. The other way I could verify is through show IP routes. Okay, as you can see over there, I have all other R routes are in service VPN 0 and one route is in service VPN 3. Okay, and that is my connected interface, and this is actually a connected route. Let's go my site 2. Okay, so over here I have configured a service VPN 2. This is my site 2. I have configured the service VPN according to my site ID. So running VPN 2. And I have configured the same interface, which is G0-3 on VPN2. I can verify by show IP route command as well that how many service VPN I have configured over here. Show IP routes. As you can see, all other are actually in service VPN 0 and one connected route is in service VPN 2. Okay. Now, the point is right now, the important thing to understand is, though I have established a tunnel with my site ID 3, but I am not learning the service VPN 3 routes over here. Why? Because service VPN 3 is not configured over here. That's why I am not learning the routes of site 3. Okay. Let me go to my data center sites. Okay. Over here, I have configured uh, the service VPN 1, show run VPN 1. I have configured actually multiple things into it, but currently the active interface is my GE0-3. I can show it to you by show IP routes. Okay. As you can see, I have one connected route with service VPN 1, which is configured in service VPN 1. That is now again, which I told you earlier, though I have successfully established a tunnel with site 2 and site 3, but I am not learning the service VPN routes of these two sites. The reason is because of spoke site 2, I have service VPN 2, and on spoke site 3, I have service VPN of 3. And I have not configured the service VPN 2 or service VPN 3 on my data center. On my data center, I have service VPN 1. Okay, so I am only learning the routes of service VPN 1 wherever is configured. For example, let me verify you one more thing. Let me go to my this spoke site 3 and let's change the service VPN of this site. So run VPN 3 config. Let me remove the show run VPN 3. Okay, and I will configure the VPN 1, which is my, and I'll copy this interface. Okay, commit and quit. Okay, commit complete. Now, the moment I have do a commit, I'm going to see the routes of my data center as well, because by default there is no configure the policy configured over here, which I mean filters any kind of a routes or T logs. Okay, show IP routes. The moment I do that, I am able to see the data center routes in my service VPN. As you can see, I'm able to learn the data center routes, which is 192.168.1.0, and it is learning through an OMP. I am going to learn the routes from the data center. Okay, and correspondingly, and now I am also able to learn the routes on my data center as well of these spoke sites. Show IP route. Good. As you can see, I am also learning my spoke site 3 routes by using a protocol OMP on my data center, right? So the point is tunnels are successfully established. There is a mesh topology, but they are not learning the service VPN routes of each other because every site has his own service VPN. Okay, so let me remove that service VPN. No VPN 1, VPN 3. Commit and quit. The moment I do, I will not able to learn my data center routes over here. Yeah, there is no routes. Okay, this is my connected route, which is in service VPN. So what is the first thing I have to do? I have to export, okay, my spoke service VPN routes, service VPN routes to data center VPN, to data center service VPN. Second thing that we have to do, again, we have to do an export as well. But what in this data center service VPN, data center service VPN routes to spokes. Okay, so this is actually a two policy that we have to configure right now. This is my graphical user interface of vManage. Let's start with the policy configuration, and the policy is going to be configured in policy section. Okay, this is a control policy that we have to configure. The thing which I had to configure is prerequisitely my data center site, which is my data center. And site ID is 1. And others are spokes, which is from 2 to 3. These are my spoke sites. Okay. Now I have to configure service VPNs as well. I would say my data center service VPN, which is 1. So add VPN 1. And my spokes service VPNs are spoke service VPN. In my case, it's 2 and 3 are my spokes service VPN. But let's say it would be more than if you have number of spokes more than 2 sites, then you can increase the number. But let's say currently I have 2 spoke sites and 2 service VPN. Add. Um, okay, there's nothing else I have to configure right now. These are the 2 things actually required to me right now. Click next. Add topology, custom control router tilo. Okay. Because as we know that we have to deal with this control policy because we have to export the routes to each other. So let's click custom control tilo. Okay. So this policy is actually route leaking. The first thing is spoke to data center. Copy into the description as well. Plus click on plus sequence type. Okay. With the route policy. The route policy is click on plus sequence route. Okay. The condition will be my site. So the site is actually the spokes, the routes that are coming from spokes. So the site that are coming actually spokes. What I have to do is I have to accept this. Click on actions, then accept. The thing which I have to do is export to. Okay, the routes actually this is the route section. So the routes that are coming from spoke sites, what you will do, you will export it to data center service VPN. Okay, that's what we have to do. Save and match actions. This is a route policy. We also had to define a T-logs as well, that what is going to happen with the T-log. By default, it's a mesh topology, so all of the sites are going to establish a tunnel to each other. So in the case of T-log, what I will do, I will only do an accept policy. Okay, the by default action is reject. I will do accept. Save and match section. When we talk about route in an SD-WAN environment, so these are the 2 things that you need to cater. One is the route, the prefix itself, and the second is the next option, which is in SD-WAN environment is actually a TLOG. Save control policy. There's another topology that we have to configure, custom control. Click on add topology, custom control route and TLOG. Now this time route leaking from data center to spokes. Okay, copy this thing and click on sequence type, routes plus sequence rule. Okay, in match condition, what we have to match is the routes that are coming from data center. So routes that are coming from my site is data center. What you have to do for those routes, click on action, click on accept, then export it to my spoke service VPN. Save and match actions. Click again plus sequence type, T-log. In the case of a T-log, I'm going to by default action is I will make it as an accept. Okay. The default action will remain reject. Plus save control policy. So these are the two policies that we have configured right now. These are two control plane policies. Click on next. We are not configuring a data traffic policy or any application aware routing. Click on next. So our policy name will be as a general route leaking, route leak. Copy this thing into the description. Now the important thing to understand is that policy is going to be implemented from the perspective of vSmart. Okay, this is the criteria through which we can deal that how the policy is going to implement. So the routes that are coming from the data center to the vSmart, I have to put the routes to spoke sites. Okay, this is the first policy, that the routes coming from data center, I have to export it to spokes. So it will be an inbound from the data center direction. So this will be my applicable policy of this. This is an inbound from the data center. So whenever the traffic or whatever the routes that are coming from the data center into the vSmart, I have to export it to the spokes. Okay. So the policy will be is an inbound from the data center. So this policy will be inbound site list will be data center. Okay. Click on add. And in the same way, the route linking from spoke to data center. So in the case of spokes, for example, let's take spoke site 3. Okay. So the routes that are coming from the spokes, okay, I have to export it to the data center. So the inbound direction is the routes that are coming from the spokes. So the inbound will be the spokes actually. So this policy route linking spoke to data center. So inbound will be my spoke sites. This is first inbound site list and it will be my spokes. Okay. Yeah, that's it. That's what we have to configure. Save policy. I also want to show to the vSmart as well because right now the policy is not activated yet. And you can see there is no policy configured right now on the vSmart. So currently control policy is not applied onto the SD-WAN environment yet. Okay. Let me, okay, this is the policy that has been configured. Let me activate this policy. The moment I do an activate, what it will do, it will push this policy to the vSmart, and after that, vSmart is going to do all the magic. Okay, the policy is applied successfully. Let's go to the vSmart and see that policy is configured over here on show run. As you can see, the policy is successfully applied to the vSmart. Now on side 3, you can see that I am able to learn my data center routes as well over here. Show IP routes. That's great. As you can see, I am learning the data center routes, the data center service VPN routes over here, which is 192.168.1.0/24 through OMP. Okay, but this is over here. It is showing as a part of service VPN 3. We can see the further details of this routes by typing show OMP routes, and we can see that where this route is going to be learned from to me. We can see the detail of this route as well, that this route is actually learning with having a site ID 1, and it is actually an originator of this system IP of which is of site ID 1 system IP. Okay, now same case goes with the site ID 2 as well. As you can see over here, I am not learning any data center routes over here, but the moment right now after implementing the policy, if I type show IP routes, let me just zoom out. Now you can see I am learning the data center routes over here as well on my site too. Okay, show OMP routes, which is 192.168.1.0, right? It is also telling you the detail of this service VPN route. The important thing that we need to understand is that despite of the fact I am I'm still learning the data center routes, but I am not learning the service VPN routes or spokes to each other. For example, on spoke 2, I am not learning the service VPN or spoke side 3. And same case on spoke 3, I am not learning the service VPN routes of spoke 2. Okay. So I'm not learning the routes of spokes to each other, but I'm learning the route of the data center. Let's go to the data center and see what exactly is happening on the data center. Let's type show IP routes. Let me zoom. Let's type show IP routes. Okay, that's great. Now you can see I am learning the service VPN routes of my spoke sites, which in my case 192.168.2.0 is my site 2 IP actually, and 192.168.3.0 is actually my site 3 service VPN. The important thing that we need to understand is that again I am learning the routes as it's a part of this service VPN. Okay, so in order to see the details of it, show OMP routes. Let's see what is going to show it to me. Okay, as you can see, I can see the detail of it that it is learning from site 3. Okay, so again, the important thing that we understand that we wanted to achieve is that the spokes, they should not able to learn the routes of each other, but they will able to learn the route of the data center. And in the same case, the data center should able to learn the routes of all of the spokes. Okay, and they should also has to communicate to each other as well. So let's ping my VPN1. The important thing right now, I will write it as a service VPN1. Okay. So whatever the communication is going to be happen through site one, it will treat it as it's a part of service VPN1. My host of site 3, let me just show interface tab builder 192.168.3.254. Okay. As you can see, I am able to ping my service VPN 3 interface on spoke site 3. Let me do a trace route VPN1. Oh, VPN1. Yes, as you can see, I am reachable to that interface as well.